Well, I think you need to step back, Reverend. Take a look at your own life before you criticize others.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 directors who saved their careers with one movie.
Each time you start from scratch.
Yes! Yes!
That's the beauty of it all. Simplicity.
For this list, we'll be looking at famous filmmakers who rejuvenated their floundering, fading, or stalling careers with one fantastic movie. Who's your favorite director from this list? Let us know in the comments. Number 10, the Russo Brothers. Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
Don't say it. Don't you say it. Left. Come on!
Before they were two of the biggest creative names in the superhero genre, the Russo brothers mainly directed comedic TV. From 2003 to the early 2010s, the Russos directed episodes of popular TV shows like Arrested Development, Happy Endings, and Community. But they followed those shows up with floundering titles like Up All Night and Animal Practice. With their TV star fading, they shifted their focus to film and directed Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which was one of the most critically acclaimed films of the MCU.
It kind of feels personal.
They went on to direct Captain America: Civil War, Avengers: Infinity War, and Avengers: Endgame. Given the massive success of, well, all of those movies, it's safe to say their transition from TV to mega movie blockbuster is complete.
Thanks. Yeah, you seem pretty helpless without me.
Number 9, Paul Schrader, First Reformed.
Well, I think you need to step back, Reverend. Take a look at your own life before you criticize others.
Schrader has been in the movie business for decades. Along the way, he's directed critical darlings like Blue Collar and Rolling Thunder. He's also written critically acclaimed films such as Taxi Driver and adapted classics like Raging Bull. Although Schrader continued to direct throughout the 90s and 2000s, none of his movies seemed to make much of an impact. That all changed with 2017's First Reformed.
I sensed it.
What?
He was absent.
While not very popular with mainstream audiences, the movie received widespread praise from critics. In addition to being celebrated for his directing work, Schrader earned his first Academy Award nomination for Best Original Screenplay.
If humankind can't overcome its immediate interest enough to ensure its own survival, then you're right. The only rational response is despair.
Number 8, Wes Craven, Scream.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Wes Craven is one of the biggest names in horror. He absolutely dominated the 70s and early 80s with iconic films like The Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes, and A Nightmare on Elm Street. And while the latter proved one of the most influential horror movies ever, Craven followed it up with a series of flops that have long been forgotten by the mainstream. 12 years after the first Nightmare on Elm Street debuted, Craven reclaimed his throne with 1996's Scream.
That's the beauty of it all. Simplicity. Besides, if it gets too complicated, you lose your target audience.
The movie was an unbelievable success, grossing $173 million. It had the added bonus of reigniting both Craven's career and the entire American horror genre, which at the time was wallowing in uninspired movies and diminishing franchise sequels.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Number 7, Ridley Scott, The Martian.
Mars will come to fear my botany powers.
Ridley Scott has actually enjoyed numerous comebacks, like when Gladiator saved him from a string of disappointments throughout the 90s.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
But his latest comeback happened after a series of duds in the late 2000s and early 2010s. Movies like Body of Lies and The Counselor, Robin Hood, and Exodus: Gods and Kings were all regarded as enormous disappointments. And then came The Martian.
Commander, you should come inside. You're gonna want to see this.
Based on the acclaimed novel by Andy Weir, The Martian became Scott's highest-grossing film with a total worldwide gross of $630 million. It also earned widespread acclaim and 7 Academy Award nominations. Unfortunately, the Best Director was not one of them, but Best Picture was, so it kind of evens out.
Yes! Yes!
Number 6, Robert Altman, The Player.
Can we talk about something other than Hollywood for a change?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're educated people.
Known as a subversive and wickedly satirical director, Robert Altman enjoyed fantastic success throughout the 1970s. He directed MASH in 1970, which won the modern-day equivalent of the Palme d'Or at Cannes. It also earned Altman his first Oscar nomination for Best Director.
That's what being a soldier is all about.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
His second came just a few years later with the musical comedy Nashville, but after working on 1977's Three Women, Altman directed a string of disappointments, including the live-action Popeye with Robin Williams. It wasn't until he made 1992's The Player that Altman was graciously welcomed back into elite award consideration. Serving as a satire of Hollywood itself, The Player was universally loved and earned Altman his third Best Director nomination.
Somehow I think you're a little too lucky for that. Thank you.
Number 5. M. Night Shyamalan, Split.
Someone's coming for you, and you're not gonna like it.
M. Night Shyamalan quickly established himself as one of the leading directors of our time with enormously popular films like Signs and The Sixth Sense. But then people began to suspect that he was a two-hit wonder. Following the popular but disappointing The Village in 2004, Shyamalan released some truly questionable material. Movies like Lady in the Water, The Happening, After Earth, and The Last Airbender received wide condemnation, with the latter often being listed as one of the worst movies of all time.
It's time for you to stop doing this!
Things began to look up at The Visit, but it wasn't until Split in 2016 that Shyamalan reclaimed his status as a thriller master. The movie received strong reviews, grossed nearly $280 million, and reignited interest in the Unbreakable series.
Patricia says your way isn't working. The world will understand now.
Number 4. David Lynch, Blue Velvet.
If that's right, let's take a look at it.
Known for his near impossible to follow and surreal films, David Lynch earned a name for himself in the late 70s and early 80s, with Eraserhead and The Elephant Man. The latter was an especially popular film and earned 8 Academy Award nominations, including Best Director and Best Picture.
I am not an animal! I am a human being!
Unfortunately, Lynch followed this up with Dune, a box office bomb that was universally maligned for Lynch's sloppy writing and directing. Luckily, he bounced back 2 years later with Blue Velvet. The psychological noir horror film put Lynch back on the map and greatly helped Dennis Hopper's career. It also earned Lynch his second Best Director nomination. It's now regarded as one of his greatest movies.
I mean, it sounds like a good daydream, but actually doing it's too weird.
Number 3. Richard Stanley, Color Out of Space.
What are you talking about? We couldn't even get through, and believe me, we tried.
No, she's telling the truth, Dad. Something weird is going on.
Few directors can seamlessly return from a 20-year hiatus. Richard Stanley is definitely one of these rare talents. Stanley directed Hardware and Dust Devil back in the early 90s. He was also the big creative behind the long-form music video Brave for British rock band Marillion.
Well, I think this is something totally new on one level, which I really like. I think it is very brave.
In 1996, Stanley was scheduled to direct The Island of Dr. Moreau, but was fired just 1 week into filming. This sour relationship seemingly dissuaded him from the mainstream, and he focused mainly on indie films and documentaries for the next 2 decades. Stanley finally returned to the mainstream with the H.P. Lovecraft adaptation Color Out of Space, which premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2019 to great critical acclaim.
I don't know what I believe anymore.
Number 2. Catherine Bigelow, The Hurt Locker.
Okay, so what's the play? Be smart. Make a good decision. Over.
Bigelow broke into the mainstream in 1991 with Point Break, a cult classic action film starring Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. It was a great stepping stone to bigger things. Unfortunately, she followed it up with a poor string of films that included the likes of The Weight of Water and K-19 The Widowmaker. Since the latter grossed about $65 million on a $90 million budget, it seemingly put Bigelow's mainstream ambitions to rest. She virtually disappeared from big-budget productions for 6 years before returning with The Hurt Locker.
All right, we're done. Good to go.
To say the movie was a success would be an understatement. Before the film entered the National Film Registry in 2020, the film took home Best Picture, and Bigelow won the Oscar for Best Director.
Is that everything?
Yeah.
Before we unveil our number 1 pick, here are a few honorable mentions. William Friedkin, Bug. Arguably Friedkin's best movie since To Live and Die in LA in 1985.
People and things. If you really look at it, you gotta look at it hard enough, you'll see it.
Clint Eastwood, Mystic River. Eastwood's best film since Unforgiven.
What makes you so sure? Sean, you gonna grill me? My father knows.
Terry Gilliam, The Fisher King. Followed the massive bomb, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
Hey! You can't be in there.
Terrence Malick, The Thin Red Line. Malick's first film in 20 years.
You explain to
to headquarters situation so they know where we are. Because we're sitting ducks out here.
David Gordon Green, Prince Avalanche. A great return to form after comedy flops like Your Highness.
Let's just enjoy the silence.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Steven Spielberg, Jurassic Park.
You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox.
Spielberg had one of the most historic runs in movie history throughout the 70s and early 80s. He directed incredibly successful movies like Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and E.T. However, things started to slow down after 1985's The Color Purple. Empire of the Sun and Always were middling Spielberg projects. Although Last Crusade was a moderate success, he followed it up with Hook, which didn't live up to critical or financial expectations. By 1993, it had been almost a decade since Spielberg made a film that really broke the mold. And then he made Jurassic Park. The hit roared up huge box office numbers and was preserved like dinosaurs in amber in the National Film Registry.
Clever girl.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.